Hey traders and investors, it's Serge Berger here. What I want to look at today is the stock price of JC Penney. I want to look at it for one because a lot of people are watching it, and I think it's important to understand where the stock is, although it's very straightforward, as we'll see in just a moment. But also just sort of for a lesson. I think it's important to understand that fighting the trend just doesn't make any sense, both on the long side and on the short side in the bigger picture. Okay, so when we're talking about JC Penney, of course, we're talking about a stock that's just basically very troubled. Okay, here I'm flipping all the way back to the year to the late 90s. You can see, a big run up, topping out in 2007, and then pretty much the rest has been history. Big sort of consolidation period that took place through the 2009 to 2011 time period, but then ultimately the stock again resumed its trend. What I want to focus on more so though is just sort of the intermediate term trend that we've witnessed since, let's call it, early 2012. Okay, and a lot of people have been trying to bottom pick this stock, and that includes a good number of smart money investors, hedge funds, and things like that. Of course, they had a bit of a different approach to trying to turn around the company, but more or less, the stock just has been a great example of something where you don't want to find the trend, and that trend has been lower. And the point I'm trying to make here today is that you don't have to get fancy. Okay, a lot of times you have to find a resistance line or a moving average that more or less fits the picture. Okay, something that fits to the chart. Not all moving averages work the same for every stock, obviously, just like we all have different size shoes and different personalities. Every stock has its own things as well. But in this case, JC Penney, ever since it broke below its 200-day moving average in May 2012, that area has held as resistance and in a big way. Now, it's important to understand that you can trade against the trend, right? And there have been support areas that have made sense to buy the stock for a trade. But a lot of people, when they try to trade against the trend, they quickly forget what their time frame is, what the time frame is that they feel most comfortable operating in. So when it comes to JC Penney, it's very simple. Again, the stock has found resistance several times at its 200-day moving average ever since it broke below it in May 2012, and it continues to do so. Now, it's important to understand that as the stock moves, we have to draw new lines again, right? So now there's other moving averages that we can start using, little shorter ones for JC Penney. We can also start drawing some very short, simple resistance lines to see where the stock might give us a point where it may signal to us that it's kind of turning around, right? So by simply drawing a couple of resistance lines, we see that if and when the stock were to start reversing back above a near-term or medium-term trend line, then the stock is starting to potentially get to a point where we can again trade it from the long side. Until it does something like that, the stock is just absolutely hopeless. Is trending lower, and it's best just basically being stayed away from, especially because it now currently trades well below $10. In fact, it traded $5. Hope this makes sense. Take care.